Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello again. Welcome, everyone, to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. I'm very excited to have our guest today. He comes all the way from Singapore. This is Aneace Haddad, and he is an executive coach with Aneace. And Aneace, I cannot thank you enough for getting up early in your time zone to jump with me on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Tell us a little bit more about what you're working on and what you do.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, great to be here. So, as you mentioned, I'm an executive coach based in Singapore. I spent the first half of my career as a tech entrepreneur. Built a payment software company in France, grew it to 30 countries, sold it in 2007. And then discovered I liked people more than computers, which was a strange thing to discover for an old programmer. And that gradually pulled me into the work that I do today. So I work exclusively with C-suite teams and working on how they can become better as a team. So 2/3 of the work is with the teams themselves. 1/3 is one-on-one coaching. And it's a boutique activity. It's not a big industrializable or scalable kind of activity the way I had in my first half of my life, but it's extremely rewarding.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I love what you do. Now, do you have a couple of books that you wanted to highlight or promote a little bit?
Yeah, so I have 2 books that I've written over that. I had 2 books that I wrote 25 years ago in the payment space, but the 2 recent ones, one of them is The Eagle That Drank Hummingbird Nectar, which is a fictional account of a 50-year-old CEO's transition from being a tech CEO to being an executive coach. So it's my story, but very deeply fictionalized, which allowed me to explore that transition. What is it we struggle with at 50 when we're shifting in such a big way?
Right.
And then the second book is called Soaring Beyond Midlife. And the subtitle is The Surprisingly Natural Emergence of Leadership Superpowers in Life's Second Half, which emerged out of the first book because I saw a framework coming together of things that are happening at midlife, the same things that can create a midlife crisis and get you to go out and buy a red sports car or a Harley or whatever. That same energy can also give rise to what I'm calling leadership superpowers, which are very cool. So that became a big focus after I wrote the first book.
Oh, I love that. I love the fact that you're kind of dealing with that second half of a person's career because that's kind of the stage I'm in. I'm in my 50s, and so it's a fun time to explore a little bit and reinvent yourself and do some new things. So I love that. I love that you're doing that. So well done on the books. Congratulations on getting those published and everything that you're doing. That's fantastic. All right. Well, Aneace, let's go ahead and get started with our questions. Question number 1. Sometimes teams and even the C-suite folks, I imagine, run into this, but they sometimes have kind of a lull in their energy or it dips a little bit. What can leaders do to infuse energy into their team?
Yeah, great question. In my experience at the executive level, so I don't want to speak for the whole organization, but at the executive level, that's mostly misalignment. So energy fades when people don't see how their work connects to a larger purpose, or when they don't feel ownership. So I like to ask the team when the energy has faded and I'm with the team, I'll ask them, how important is this topic from 1 to 10, and hear from each person. And then you always find something very rich that emerges, because some of the people might say 3 or 4. There'll be a couple that say 8 or 9 or 10. Then you hear from them, and either it elevates the whole team, or the whole team goes, we're really wasting our time on this, and we're just doing it for legacy reasons. Let's drop this thing once and for all. So it's a way to get clear on alignment at a deep level. I don't like binary alignment of just nodding. Are we on board? Yes or no? I like the depth and subtlety and nuance of 1 to 10, because you can really see misalignments in a much more precise manner.
Oh, I like that a lot. That's a great idea to consider some kind of a scale, not just the yes or no. I love that. Non-binary. Let's get to some depth there. I love how you said that. And I love that example because that is so important. And the approach of being able to say, is this topic that we're talking about, is it working for us? Is this really what we're excited about, energized about? Does it need to be done? That's a great approach. Love that. All right, question number 2. How can leaders promote learning in their company or team?
Oh, another really great one. I like this one a lot. Well, one of the biggest impediments, barriers to learning at the top level is people uncomfortable with saying, I don't know. Um, so they can't get themselves into a beginner's mindset because they came up through the ranks by having all the answers.
Right.
That's how they got there. They're able to answer correctly, quickly, get the job done, and then they get to the top and they want to be a learner and everything like that. You want to be a beginner again, but I can't say I don't know. What would I look like to my teams if I say I don't know? And that just hamstrings the whole thing. So the real challenge is to explore, how do I say I don't know when I don't know? And the vast majority of the time at that level, things are so complex, you can't know. So pretending to know just kind of sends a really loud signal throughout the organization to beware. You can't be a learner or a beginner here. You got to have the answers. So make sure you're not you're not learning. So if you want to create a learning company, it has to start at the top and say we're beginners. We really don't know. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going. There's so much chaos and everything. We'll figure it out together.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's a powerful way at that level to promote learning throughout the company.
I love that. And I agree completely. There is this little a lot of times, self-imposed fear of looking like you don't know the answer. But I love your approach to it, Aneace, because what you're saying is, hey, we don't know the answer, but we're going to figure it out. And that
Yeah.
still conveys a confidence to say, yeah, we don't know the answer, but we will figure it out because we've dealt with these kinds of things in the past, the unknown, and we've figured it
Yep.
out in the past. We're going to figure it out again. I love that response. Love
Yep.
that. All right. Question number 3. What's one tip on how to can delegate more effectively?
Mm. That one came, yeah, that one was quite a big discovery a number of years ago. The distinction between what is it that we're delegating? And when I'll ask, when I ask a senior executive who's working on delegation, and they'll say, you delegate tasks. And then I'll point out that the word empowerment, the dictionary definition of empowerment, is delegating authority and results, not tasks. So the biggest tip is to really become clear of that distinction. Am I delegating a task or am I delegating authority and outcomes? Um, and that can be kind of tricky. And sometimes if you get feedback on that, say, hey, on this last project, from I love 1 to 10 because again, binary really gets in the way. If 1 out of 10 is I'm delegating a task and 10 out of 10 is I'm delegating authority and results, where is it? What have I delegated to you? What is your experience of it? And people will say all kinds of things. They might say you start out at an 8, but then when you check in on me every day, that feels like a 3.
Yeah.
So you can get clarity by really digging deeper as what is it that and how can I delegate authority and outcomes more than tasks? And what does that mean? What does it look like?
Oh, yeah.
And that is I think the biggest issue there is that it means letting go of needing to be needed, because
Yeah.
that's a big one at that time. And so
Oh, it is.
that's a hard one.
Yeah, I sure that with the executives that you've been working with over the years, that really is a lot of their identity is that, kind of like what you were saying earlier, I know all the answers. I need to be responsible. I need to take the credit for it. There's a lot of different ways that that comes across, but ultimately they've got to be willing to let it go. And that is a big challenge for a lot of people, regardless of their seniority level. It's hard to let go sometimes, but I love how you explained that it's not just the task itself, it's the outcome, it's the authority and the results, all of those kinds of things. Great comments. Love that. All right, question number 4. how can leaders better communicate their purpose and vision to their team or to their company if they're in the C-suite?
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Well, well, for one thing, it's much less in the words and it's much more in the actions. Because there's so many times when I'm doing a pulse survey throughout the organization, the kind of information that comes back is that the top, they're just not doing what they say. So we hear one thing from them, but they're not really. So it's really your actions. And an interesting thing with this purpose, your why and all that. Simon Sinek has done so much on in that area. There was a fascinating thing a few years ago I started to notice is that over 40, the senior executives in their 40s and 50s, early 60s, I would much, I would rarely hear conversations on purpose. And it's under 40 that I would hear more of the conversations, questions on purpose. So as I dug into that, I think what starts to shift at the senior levels is it might be less about purpose and maybe more about presence. So
Hmm.
how am I showing up right now? And am I showing up in a way that is furthering what we want as our goals and the kind of vision that we've stated and all that? So that kind of it's kind of peeling the onion, if you like, on this notion of purpose and vision. What is my purpose? What is my presence right now? How is that communicating the purpose and vision that we want to communicate, as opposed to talking about does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of a subtle nuance.
No, I love it. I mean, it's very much that old adage, actions speak louder than words. But what I love about what you're saying, Aneace, is that for all of us, the actions do need to be in alignment and harmony with what we're saying, because that's what happens to the rank and file is they're hearing from the executives, hey, this is the vision, this is the purpose, whatever values, whatever things that they're communicating at the moment. It's got to present itself in action, and they've got to be able to tie it to their
Yeah.
role, their everyday activities. Okay, if we're going to say, we provide stellar customer service, what does that really mean in the day-to-day functions
Yeah.
of whatever role it is, whether you're the accountant or the actual support person that's on the phone with the customer? How does that come across? And so, yeah, I completely
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. Yeah, I love that. Great comment. All right, last question, the fun question. I always like this part because it gets to know our guests a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
So my first job with an actual paycheck was at McDonald's, flipping burgers at McDonald's. I was doing quarter pounders at McDonald's um, in high school, last year of high school. Um, and I don't know if I learned any, what profound, uh, probably Probably I experienced what it felt like to be managed rather than led, because in that environment, it's kind of, they've got all these young high school kids and everything, and it's going to be a management type of organization. Yeah, maybe that it was interesting when you asked, yeah, when you asked the question and where it took me back to McDonald's.
McDonald's.
I've been a cashier at a grocery store.
Okay. Yeah, I get quite a few of those. I get the fast food industry or a grocery store clerk of some kind or something like that.
Uh,
It's actually quite common. What's fun is that a lot of times the guest will say, what did I learn from that job? I learned I didn't want to do that job. I was like,
yeah,
I don't want to flip burgers for the
yeah,
rest of my life. What's really funny though is I have had guests who have said I started in fast food and absolutely loved it, and now they are the franchise owner. They have their own franchise of that very place because they fell in love with it. And it's, well, that's part of
yeah,
the fun of learning. You try it out and you find out, okay, I like this or I don't like that. So I love that.
yeah.
Aneace, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on the Team Engagement Podcast. I've loved talking to you. You've got great energy and great insights. How can people get a hold of you?
So very easy. My website is aramis.com, ARAMYSS.com. And you can also find me online with Aneace, my first name, Aneace. It's a uniquely spelled first name. I got the .com of it because nobody else has it, and
Right.
I have a really big digital footprint, easy to find. So,
Good.
yeah, that no problems there.
Sounds great. Well, thank you again. And thanks to all of you for joining us on the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We look forward to next week when we get to talk again about what it means to be a good leader of teams or companies. And thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Have a great day. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.